everyone, my name is Kenzie and today we're going to paint this watercolor piece right here. This was a lot of fun to create. We used a lot of the wet on wet techniques here and the wet on dry for the bottom. If you would like to just worry about the painting and not the sketching. So this right here is my Winsor Newton watercolor paints that I have taken from the tube and put it inside this palette that I got off of Amazon. I have a tapping cloth right here. It's always good to have one. That way you don't have excess water on your page. I also have my 2 water cups right here. One I use for cool paints and one I use for my warmer paint colors. I also have right here my dryer. I like to use this to speed up the process between layers. These are the brushes that I use. These are the silver black velvet. I have size 12, 4, and 8, and these are the round tip brushes. So these are also some other brushes that I like to use as well. If I have a large area like a landscape, I'll typically use this brush. I also like to use bleed proof white. This is a very highly pigmented white, which will sit on top of any type of color. I'm using this painting as an example. I always like to have painter's tape on hand. I like to paint down my paintings. It's easier to one film and to also just keep everything from moving around and it getting a little messy. It also helps to protect your desk, which you'll see mine is very worn. So it definitely does help with that. Go to the description below and it will take you to my website where you can download the sketch so you can paint with ease. Let's get started. To get started, I'm going to start sketching out my painting. This sketch, as I talked about at the beginning of the video, will be available down below in the description. So if you want to skip this step and you already have your download, then you'll be good to go. But this is just how I did it. So I have my protractor here and I'm testing it out on a scratch piece of paper because I don't want my moon to be super big. Actually, this paper size might be too small. So I'm just sketching it to make sure I have it at the right setting and how big I want the moon. Yeah, it feels pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna move this out the way. And I kind of want it off to the side. So most of the time when I create these sketches, I'll then upload it to my iPad and make it real. I'm going to freehand the trees and stuff and the little coffins that we're going to be making. And then once my painting is complete, like I said, I'll upload it and I will trace it on my iPad to be reproduced for you guys. I'm now just grabbing an eraser, which I do not have out, and I have to make this line a little softer. I don't know why I went so dark, but that will shine through in my painting, which I don't want. So I'm just using an eraser to make this line lighter. I don't want to see it with my artwork. All right, so back in my head, I'm thinking, like, what do I want to do first? Do I want to do the background or the foreground? But I feel like I want to just do the moon. So a fun little trick to do the moon, you're going to want it decently wet. So I'm going to grab my brush and I'm going to do the wet on wet technique, is when you apply a wet surface onto another wet surface. So you don't want this completely dripping, but you want a nice shine. So I'm coming in and applying. There we go. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of a blue color. And I'm just going to have a lot of water on my brush so that it just explodes and expands everywhere. I'm going to add some gray. I'm also going to make sure that I'm leaving some white space, which is just the paper, some paper shining through. I'm going to move this around a little bit. Make sure my line is nice and crisp, getting right to the edge here. Yeah, and just let that do its thing. So before I can do my background, I have to make sure that this moon is 100% dry, otherwise I can't move on. So I'm gonna grab my dryer right here and I'm gonna make it dry. Okay, there we go. So one thing that I should know as well, I went nice and light, which means that I put a lot more water than paint right here in my palette to get this nice soft moon effect. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to paint my background now. So I am gonna again use that wet on wet technique, and I'm gonna use my mop brush first. And the same thing as before, you don't want there to be a ton of water where if you lift up your page, it's just gonna drip, but you also want a decent amount where if you're using beginner watercolor paper, it will shine through. Sorry, it won't dry really fast. So I'm layering with my mop brush a decent amount of water. And this will just prevent there from being lots of streaks. And same thing with the moon, just nice soft blends. That is the fun thing about the wet on wet technique. All right, so I'm gonna start mixing up my galaxy colors a little bit, but first I'm gonna come in with my yellow. And I'm gonna put in my lightest color first. And I'm just gonna roughly put it down different places because I want this color to shine through. I'm still using the mop brush, and I'm gonna switch it over so I can grab a little bit more pigment. There we go. I'm gonna come in now with my purples. I'm now moving over to my size 12 brush. And just like the galaxy, I'm just moving it freely, letting the paper do its thing. Bring it in different places. And then I'm going to move on to my blues. Letting the colors bleed together. You can also use some spots where it's more water, so it's lighter. You can add more pigment directly on so it's darker. Now, when you touch the blue with the yellow on your page, you are going to want to make sure that you're being careful here not to overmix because you'll make green on your page. So definitely just be careful that you're not moving it around too much. I'm just going to bring this color all the way down. I just mixed a little bit of blue and purple here on my palette first before I put it onto my page. And I'm going to be very careful to go around my moon here. I'm going to come into some spots with a little bit more pigment, Now being careful because some of these spots that I haven't touched in a minute might already be dry. I actually really like the blue and the purple mix. I thought that was really pretty. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of that in some spots. Grabbed a napkin as well, and what I can come in and do is blot around some areas as well. This will just give it a really cool texture. Now this technique will only really work if you have this page still kind of wet. If this is dry, it won't pick up anything, obviously. So I'm coming in, just blotting around, especially around the moon. I just found that this will create a really fun effect within your painting. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I do want to add, I think, just one more, just bright yellow in here, just a little bit. And now I can let this dry. So I'm gonna grab my dryer again. Put this napkin away. I'm gonna dry my painting. So we want this to be a starry night. So what I do have is this nice bleed-proof white. Another thing that you can do if you don't have it is you could just mix a little bit of water into white acrylic as well. Just a little bit, you don't need much water. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna use, I find that my size, what is this, my 8 brush collects pigment a lot better. So I just put my brush in a little bit of water and I'm going to circulate this through, and I'm going to tap to get some nice stars. I'm finding that just flicking it is working a lot quicker. Okay, I'm just gonna clean off my brushes real quick. And I have to let this dry as well. I can even come in with my small brush if I want some bigger stars. I can just hand paint a few larger ones as well. And then once this is done and dry, we can move on to the painting of the tree part, okay? So I am freehanding my tree. So it might look a little different, but it's the same technique. So I'm gonna come in and make sure this is 100% dry before I start spreading black on my page. So I'm gonna start mixing my black now into my palette. And starting from my corner, I'm just gonna create the look of my tree, my nice trunk. I'm gonna bring it all the way down. I'm gonna create the shape of it. I'm gonna bring this black color all the way across. I'm gonna make this tree a little thicker. And then I'm gonna start making my breakaways. So I'm gonna come in and create my trunk. And then from my trunk is when I can start making like my little V shapes. Now I don't want my V shapes to be super uniform, so I'm gonna use light pressure at the very tip of my brush. And I'm just gonna create little wiggly lines kind of coming from my tree. I feel like I'm holding my breath doing this. And I'm gonna have it coming all the way across. Okay, I like that. I like how I end at the top, but I'll just have some like branches coming from it as well. So it looks like it just keeps kind of going up. Okay, I was worried about my proportions there, but I'm glad I tapered it really thin towards the top. I'm just gonna make these just a little bit thicker though, I think. I'm just gonna do like lots of like little squiggly lines now. I'm gonna make this one darker. So even though you guys will have, some of you will have the sketches, you can keep adding like little lines as well, wherever you feel like you want to add some. So don't feel like you're limited to just what I've already sketched out. So you can come in and just keep adding your own lines. Take your time with this and really just make it your own. Okay, I feel pretty good about this. I might come in the end depending on where I go with this. So I am now going to add my little spookiness. So again, I'm not trying to have like perfect lines or anything. So even though some of you again will have a sketch, just don't feel like you're restricted to trying to stay perfectly within the lines. I think that's what makes these fall Halloween spookies so much fun. So I'm coming in. Just gonna make this a little darker. I'm gonna make like a little spooky fence, and I'm using different types of pressure on my brush. I'll make this darker. So I'm coming in with some darkness. Now this one I'm doing right here is called the wet on dry technique. So this is basically just a layer that will just sit on top of the previous layer. So as you're seeing here, it's just making that black so much darker than before. So I'm just doing some loose lines for a fence in my cemetery. Do a nice tall one as well. And then from here, we can just have fun with this. We can add some tombstones. Some crosses on them. Some mini tombs. Create little designs. And if you go and paint a little bit of gray, if you grab some gray as well, you can get the appearance of things that look further away as well. And then when you go to some graveyards as well, some of the tombs are just crosses as well. So you can just have fun with this. You can add as many or as little tombstones as you'd like. But one thing that I really did want to add is I wanted to add bats. I think bats are so fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some bats kind of over the moon as well. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a nice big bat, I think. Yeah, a nice big bat, or larger bat, I should say, because I want it to look closer. So I just did a seagull, and then I'm going to do an M shape on both sides. And then I'm going to bring it into my middle, and then I'm going to do a head with little ears, and I'm going to fill this in. But I want to just dip everything, my brush, into my water. I'm going to tap my napkin, and I'm actually going to scoop right in here where its wings are for a nice highlight, because the flesh on a bat is really, really thin, and I want it to be really light as if the sun is shining through. I'm going to grab my black again, and I'm going to go around the edges so that the edges are super black. And I'm doing this while it's wet, so it's going to seep into that area. Just like the sky and the moon with that wet on wet technique. Okay, and then we can do another one. So I feel like I went a little too conservative there. So I do want to come in and make it a little bigger. I'm going to do like a big one right here. So I'm going to come in again with this seagull shape. And I did this a little bit larger than my other side because I want it to be angled. And this time I'm going to do 3 M's. I'm going to do this side with 3. I'm going to do little feet for my bat. And then of course his head. Okay, and this time I want it to be nice and light. So I'm just using nice gray. And same thing as before, I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush and I'm going to scoop. Let that light shine through that's underneath. So it's nice and light. And then I'll just do like a little baby one, I think, off here. So I'm going to switch to my smaller brush now. Get rid of everything that was on that brush. And I'm going to do a different shape. I'm going to do more of a V. And then I'm going to point it out. And then I'm going to come in and do my little shapes. And the same thing as what I said before, if you want to add your own variations of bats, if you want to practice the freehanding, add more bats. You can have as many or as little bats as you would like. I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush and just have like a little hair of a highlight here. Crisp up my line a little bit right here. There we have it. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I hope that you have enjoyed it too. This was just a really fun painting. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos like this, please check out my channel, like and subscribe this video, and I will paint with you guys soon. Happy painting!